Okay, we're here. Thank you all. In St. Marcia's memoir, she writes, "I was chosen for a time like this. And I say to you, you are chosen for a time like this." First, giving honor to God, who's the head of my life. And to paraphrase Dr. Maya Angelou, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000 ancestors. Good afternoon, students, faculty, SCIE, the English department, and Pastor Richie Butler, who chooses to be late. And Southern Methodist University. Thank you again. I'm deeply honored to stand before you today as we celebrate Black History Month. This is more than Black history, it is American history. It is more than a month of remembrance, it is a call to action. A reminder of the sacrifices made and a moment to reflect on the work that still lies ahead. Today, I want to honor the legacies of those who came before us while reflecting on how we can shape the future. As a storyteller, I believe in the transformative power of narrative to heal, inform, and inspire. My novel, Mourner's Bench, explores the lives of generations of Black women and the struggles they faced before and during the Civil Rights Movement. Through their stories, I have come to understand that Black history is not just about the monumental events recorded in textbooks. It is also about the quiet acts of resistance, community building, unwavering determination, and the passing of wisdom from one generation to the next. In Mourner's Bench, characters like Granny, Madea, Esther, and Little Sarah represents different eras of struggle and resilience. Granny lived during the early 20th century through the Red Summer of the 1919 Elaine, Arkansas race riots. Any Arkansas people in here? If you don't know Elaine, Arkansas, you can still think about Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely.
Riots. They call it the Bloody Summer. Bloody Summer. So Granny lived through the Red Summer of the 1919 Elaine, Arkansas race riots, when racially motivated violence erupted across the country. She represents a generation that endured unspeakable terror and yet held on to her dignity and hope. Granny said in the novel, "We kept going, we had to. We couldn't afford not to." That statement resonates with me because it embodies the spirit of survival that Black Americans have carried through centuries of oppression. Her words remind us that survival itself was an act of defiance against the systems designed to break us. Madea, the grandmother, lived during the Great Depression in a world of economic hardship and disproportionately affected Black families. But she taught her family resilience, resourcefulness, and that an overwhelming belief in God could help you overcome any obstacle. Hard times don't break us, she says in the novel. They teach us how to live when we have nothing. This lesson is still relevant today as we see Black communities disproportionately impacted by poverty, police brutality, environmental injustice, and economic inequality. As we reflect on history, it's important to remember that ordinary people, this, what you're looking at here is actually the Arkansas Delta during the 1960s. And as you can see, young children also participated in everything that was going on, from voters registration to protests and everything. Whether they knew what was going on or not, they were there. As we reflect on history, it is important to remember that ordinary people have always been the engine of change. Esther, born after World War II, represents a bridge between generations. A woman who saw her parents fight for survival and raised her daughter to fight for progress. Her era reminds us that the struggle for civil rights was not a single moment, but a continuation of efforts passed down through generations. Trying to read slow to give Pastor Butler a chance. There he is. There he is.
Welcome, Pastor Butler.
I even have family in the building. And then there's Sarah, an eight-year-old young coming of age during the civil rights movement, who discovers that activism isn't just something you watch on TV. It is something you do. She learns that even small actions matter. As she says in the novel, I thought change came from people we read about in the newspapers. I didn't know it could come from me. This realization is crucial, especially for today's generation.
That's right.
We tend to think of history as something shaped by famous leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, or Malcolm X, but history is also shaped by those whose names we don't know. The mothers who organized and protested, the students who desegregated schools, and the church members who, I laugh because I know that's the church members who opened their doors for civil rights meetings. These ordinary sheroes and heroes made extraordinary sacrifices. They remind us that we all have a role to play in shaping the future. In my recent article in the New Yorker and the New York Times, I reflected on the ongoing impact of systemic racism and violence against Black communities by the police department. In my article on Breonna Taylor, I wrote, "Grief is not passive. It is a demand that something change." Her death and deaths of countless others are not just tragedies. They are also a call to action. We cannot separate the struggles of the past from the realities of today. The same system that denied my characters opportunities in Mourner's Bench are still at work in modern institutions. Disparities in education, healthcare, housing, and the criminal justice system are not coincidences. They are the result of a long history of exclusion and discrimination. But if history has taught us anything, it is that change is possible. As I wrote in the New York Times, we've never had the luxury of waiting for justice. We've had to create it ourselves. This is where you come in, young people. You have always been at the forefront of change. As I stand here today, I ask that you think about what role you would play in the ongoing fight for justice and equality. You don't have to be the next Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks. You don't have to lead a march or give a speech. Change happens in small, meaningful ways, in the way you educate yourself and others, in the conversations you have with your family and friends, in the way you challenge injustice whenever you see it, and in the way you vote. Let me tell you a story from Mourner's Bench. There's a moment when Sarah's mother tells her, "We don't always get to see the change we're fighting for, but that doesn't mean we stop fighting for it." These words are important because they remind us that progress is often slow, and incremental, but that doesn't make it any less significant. Dr. Martin Luther King didn't get to see his dream wholly manifested. It is rumored that he told his friend Harry Belafonte, "I fear I may have integrated my people into a burning house." I wonder if in those flames he saw how complicated the struggle for justice and economic freedom would be for us. I wonder if he realized President Johnson and the people in power knew that desegregation would cause economic dependence on white-controlled corporations and lead us into another form of servitude. I wonder if he anticipated that Black economic progress for some would cause Black flight, which left behind a hole the size of the Grand Canyon in our communities. I wonder if he saw the erosion of Black businesses, the decline in enrollment in historically Black colleges and universities, and the explosion of incarceration rates disproportionately affecting Black men and women. I wonder if he saw that they would create a system to cause the decline in Black families and labor our women welfare moms. I wonder if he cried when he looked into the year 2025 and saw the very rights that he and so many others fought, bled, and died for being dismantled. Although I clearly understand, I wonder if he saw in those flames that he should have continued negotiations and stood for Blacks to remain separate but equal. I wonder. I wouldn't know these things if they had not been written. Storytelling is one of the most powerful tools we have to preserve our history and to inspire future generations. When I wrote Mourner's Bench, I wanted to capture the voices of those who came before me, the women whose contributions were no less important than those of the leaders we celebrate. Our stories keep us connected to our ancestors and remind us of our sacrifices. But storytelling is not just about looking back. It is also about imagining the future. As you leave here today, I encourage you to think about the stories you want to tell. What legacy do you want to leave for the next generation? As we honor Black History Month, let's do so not just with remembrance, but especially during these times we're living in now, with action. Let us honor the past by committing to the future where every voice is heard, where economic justice and power are pursued relentlessly, and where stories like Mourner's Bench continue to be written. Thank you.
Yeah.